Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the absolute darkest night of the 14th year of prophethood to uncover what is, honestly, a chilling historical thriller. We are looking at a moment where history literally hung in the balance. The source material we're unpacking today gives us this incredibly detailed, almost minute-by-minute account of a secret midnight council, a ruthless plot for murder, and a miraculous escape that completely changed the world. So how exactly did history's most infamous assassination plot unfold? Well, to understand that, we have to step right into the secret corridors of Dar al-Nadwa. This was the assembly house of Makkah, basically the room where only the absolute most critical, high-stakes decisions were made. At this point, the leaders of Quraysh were watching the Muslims slowly slip away to the city of Yathrib to find safety and allies. Panic was setting in. And that sheer desperation drove the elites of Makkah to plot against the Prophet in a highly classified, closed-door emergency session. Imagine the scene. It's Mecca, the 14th year of prophethood, on a completely moonless, pitch-black night. The atmosphere inside that room was just thick with venom, anger, and anticipation. These elites were holding this meeting with one singular, terrifying goal. They had to permanently stop the spread of Islam before the Prophet could join his followers in Yathrib and build a fortified stronghold. Section 1. The Mysterious Stranger. Inside the hall, Abu Jahl, the tyrant of Mecca, was aggressively whipping up the crowd's fury. He was demanding action. But right in the middle of this incredibly tense atmosphere, a knock echoes through the room. The heavy doors open up to reveal a totally unexpected guest standing out in the shadows. The historical sources describe him as an old man from the region of Najd, with these cunning, hateful eyes. Now, he claimed he just wanted to sit, listen to their counsel, and maybe offer some wisdom. But the chilling reality? This was actually Iblis, Satan himself in disguise. If you've ever wondered how exactly Iblis manipulated and pushed Quraysh to assassinate the Prophet, this is it. He infiltrated the meeting to bring a sinister, supernatural push into an already deadly political crisis. Section 2. 3 Deadly Proposals. The council needed a permanent solution, and they needed it right then and there. This kicks off a high-stakes debate, with 3 distinct, ruthless proposals on the table. The options were chains, meaning lifetime imprisonment, banishment, meaning total exile, or the sword, outright assassination. Let's break down how this played out, and pay close attention to why that old man from Najd swiftly and aggressively shot down the first 2 ideas. Proposal number 1 was brought forward by a leader named Abu al-Bakhtari. His idea was pretty straightforward. Imprisonment. Just lock him up behind closed doors. He suggested putting the Prophet in heavy iron chains, locking him in a room, and simply waiting for him to pass away. To the council, this probably sounded like a relatively safe, quiet solution that avoided any messy, immediate public bloodshed. But Iblis was not having it. He vehemently rejected this. Speaking up with this harsh, grating voice, he warned them, "By God, his followers will strike and tear him from your hands." You see, Satan understood the unbreakable loyalty of the Muslims. He knew for a fact that if the Prophet was simply locked away, his followers wouldn't just sit around. They would undoubtedly launch a fierce rescue mission, overpower the guards, and free him. So just like that, the first proposal was officially dead. So the council pivots to Proposal 2, banishment and exile. Another leader basically said, look, let's just force him out of our lands entirely. The logic was, if he's gone from Mecca, he becomes someone else's problem, right? They could finally just go back to their old way of life without his daily influence disrupting things. But once again, the disguised Iblis steps in with chilling foresight. He literally sneered at the idea, warning them, "Have you not seen his eloquence and the sweetness of his speech? He will win over the Arab tribes, and they will march upon you and trample you in your own lands." Notice what's happening here. Iblis is actively manipulating the deepest fears of the Quraysh leaders. He's systematically closing off every single peaceful or non-lethal option, backing them into a corner to ensure they choose murder. Section 3. The Perfect Assassination. Following the total rejection of the second proposal, a heavy, suffocating silence fell over Dar al-Nadwa. They were stumped. That is, until Abu Jahl stepped up with a terrifyingly calculated master plan. It was essentially a loophole designed to completely bypass all the strict tribal laws and protections of Arabian society. He said, let's select one strong, elite youth from every single tribe in Mecca, arm them all with razor-sharp swords, and have them strike the Prophet simultaneously as one man. Why? Because by doing this, the guilt and the blood would be scattered equally across all the clans. The Prophet's own clan, Banu Hashim, would be mathematically unable to wage a total war against every other tribe combined. They'd have absolutely no choice but to surrender and just accept financial compensation or blood money. When this twisted plan was spoken out loud, the old man from Najd was absolutely thrilled. Iblis enthusiastically approved, shouting, "This is the opinion and there is no other." And right there, that is exactly how Iblis successfully pushed Quraysh into committing to the assassination. By validating Abu Jahl's whole logic, Satan sealed the deadly pact in that room. The meeting adjourned and the wheels of history's darkest plot were officially in motion. 11. That very same night, 11 elite, heavily armed youths from the strongest tribes were dispatched. They sharpened their swords on stones in the dead of night and quietly moved in to surround the Prophet's house, completely blocking off every possible exit. As the night deepened, the contrast was just incredible. Think about it. Outside the house, you have 11 elite assassins gripping drawn swords, peeking through the cracks of the wooden door, waiting tensely for dawn to strike. Complete, chaotic thirst for murder. But inside the house, there's no panic at all. There is absolute calm, unwavering faith in divine protection, and a brilliantly daring decoy plan being set into motion. Section 4. The Miraculous Escape. Inside that small house, the Prophet prepared for what honestly seemed like an impossible escape. He turned to his brave young cousin, Ali bin Abi Talib, and gave him instructions that required just unimaginable courage. He asked Ali to sleep in his bed and cover himself with the Prophet's own green mantle. And Ali, he volunteered as the decoy without a single second of hesitation. He threw himself onto the bed, fully, completely aware of those 11 drawn swords waiting just inches away outside the door. By doing this, he authored one of the absolute greatest acts of sacrifice and bravery in Islamic history, lying there calmly while the eyes of death literally watched him through the door cracks. And then, the impossible happens. At the designated moment, the door opens. The Prophet walks out completely calmly. According to the texts, he recited verses of divine protection from the Quran, declaring that a barrier had been placed before them and behind them. He bent down, took a handful of dust from the ground, and threw it right over the assassins' heads. In a moment that totally defies belief, their sight was miraculously shielded. They were essentially blinded to his presence. He strolled right past the paralyzed assassins, leaving them standing there in the dark, gripping their swords with dust sitting on their heads. Section 5. The journey begins. Escaping the house was amazing, sure, but it was just phase 1 of this massive logistical operation. Next, he met up with his closest companion, Abu Bakr. Together, they pulled off a brilliant logistical masterstroke to evade the massive manhunt they knew would erupt as soon as the sun came up. Mecca is south of Yathrib, so the natural, obvious path of escape would be to head straight north. Knowing the expert trackers of Quraysh would rush north to intercept them, they did the exact opposite. They headed south, climbing the rugged, treacherous paths of Mount Thor in the pitch black, severely complicating any chance of pursuit. When they finally reached Cave Thar, they had to lay low for 3 terrifying days. The details from the sources here are just astounding. Abu Bakr refused to let the Prophet enter until he went in first. He literally tore up his own clothes to block the dark holes in the cave walls so no scorpions or snakes could strike them. Despite all that, while the exhausted Prophet slept with his head resting on Abu Bakr's lap, a venomous snake emerged from the one remaining unblocked hole and bit Abu Bakr's foot. The unparalleled loyalty of Abu Bakr really shines brightly here. He bore this agonizing, burning pain in absolute silence, freezing his body and crying silently just so he wouldn't wake his companion. It was only when a single tear fell onto the Prophet's face, waking him, that the Prophet instantly healed the venomous bite with his saliva. The tension finally peaked when the elite tracking experts of Quraysh followed their footprints all the way up the mountain and literally stood directly above the mouth of their cave. Abu Bakr was terrified, whispering that if the trackers simply looked down at their feet, they would be spotted. It was in this breathless do-or-die moment that the Prophet offered these immortal words of comfort. "O Abu Bakr, what do you think of 2 when Allah is their third?" Miraculously, the search party inexplicably turned away, and the 2 companions were saved. But survive in the cave was only the very first hurdle of this migration. So, what happens next? How did they cross a scorching, unforgiving desert? How did they evade desperate bounty hunters on sinking horses? And how did they finally reach the waiting arms of Yathrib? The escape was just the beginning. Make sure you subscribe to the channel right now so you do not miss part 2 of this epic explainer where we track the rest of this miraculous journey.